it's absolutely our honor. And without wasting any more time, I'd like to dive right in and understand a little bit about you, uh, a little bit about your background, and how did you decide to work in the nonprofit sector?
Well, I'm a proud immigrant from the Dominican Republic. I came to New York City with my dad looking for better work opportunities. My dad did it all, from driving a cab, from working at a mechanic shop, from working in a bodega, to picking up garbage. He did everything and anything that he could to provide for us. One thing he did instill in us was always stay in school. So my school was my family. I spent from the working day to the very evening. I was one of the first students in there, one of the last students to leave. My principal was like my mom. My teachers were like my aunts. So I ended up being a school teacher. I've been in education 15 years, 13 years as a school teacher, and 2 years as a volunteer. And the one thing that I saw at my time in the education field is that our children don't have a view of their future. And what I mean by that is that they're living in the right now. And what we do at Brains Academy is that we create another reality for them. We show them the amazing potential that they have through education, whether it's within biology, robotics, artificial intelligence, nanosciences, and social sciences. It's important to understand what the new workforce is looking for. And people from my community usually don't have those advantages, and that's why we created Brains Academy, because we believe that education shouldn't be confined into spaces. It should be available and ready for anyone and everyone at any time, which is why we chose e-learning.
Awesome. So you said a lot of things in this one answer. So I'm going to break it down to different questions that I have. Firstly, I want to understand the importance of education from you, and I would like to understand both the perspective of an educator and also someone who is running a nonprofit. So how has that played out for you?
So as an educator, I'm more of a school mom. I'm here to serve and protect my children. And when I mean my children, I mean my students. It's a different role for me as a mother myself with 3 children. Like I said, education is very important in my household. It's how we were able to make it out of poverty. As a nonprofit leader, it breaks my heart almost to see that I can't do more. Like I wish I can help every student that I see on the street, every child that I see that's lacking in education anywhere. Especially in third world countries. We call them third world countries, but they're really not third world countries. For example, Dominican Republic and Haiti is one of the places that we serve the most. Being able to provide children with food and housing and an education, to me as a nonprofit leader, is literally the purpose of why I exist.
Amazing. And the second part of my question to this same trail is that you mentioned that the reason that you wanted to provide education to everyone is why you chose the e-learning medium, right? So was that always like this pre-COVID, or did that something happen during COVID that your mode of education changed? So if you could just tell us about that.
So we've been doing this 4 years before pre-COVID. I learned that technology was taking over our youth. They were spending literally, if they were awake 24 hours of the day, would spend 20 hours of that the time in an electronic device, whether a cell phone or tablet or a computer, doing any means type of things. So when we instilled Brains Academy, we created our SYOP, or our standard operating agreement, which is what we are going to do as an organization. We decided that e-learning was the best route to go. Everyone has access to a cell phone. Everyone has access to a computer or a tablet. We can connect the world through these devices. So what better than to educate people through these devices, whether you're in India, whether you're in China, whether you're in New York City, whether you're in a little island in the Caribbean, it doesn't matter. We can connect students through e-learning, and that's why we chose it.
Clearly you were ahead of your time, and that must have come handy a lot during the pandemic. So amazing, great foresight on your part on that. And I'd like to understand a little bit more about your program. So I saw that it distinctly says STEAM and not STEM. So it has arts in it. So something that we often don't acknowledge. STEM courses are given a lot of importance, especially in the US, and especially for kids who want to study in the US, because they get to stay in US if they do a STEM course. So I really want to understand it from you. Why did you choose to put that A in your STEM?
Well, as a scientist, I believe that science without art is like having functional eyes and not having a vision. I think art brings everything that science is to life. We couldn't visualize science if it wasn't through art. So art is, to me, is part of STEM. There is no STEM without art. Art allows students to make connections to not only social and emotionally, but academically to their own experiences. Through art, people can show how they're feeling, they can show what they're trying to tell you. Art is a way of communication that allows, regardless of your language that you speak, to be able to connect. So I think arts is to me, art is that scaffold that houses everything that has to do with science and social sciences together.
That is so true. And I think this does not get told enough, what you said, that it adds a lot of color to science. So very, very true on that. And the last part of this whole giant question that I have is that you mentioned that the struggles of people of color or children are very different from other kids, right? So how has that journey been like for you? And again, I want to understand it from a mother's perspective and a non-profit founder perspective.
So in both perspectives, it's been a very humbling experience. Like I said, the reason we founded Brains Academy was because we saw the lack of opportunities our communities had. And when I mean our communities, I mean people of color, regardless of what color you are. Our communities are underfunded, they're undervalued, and when it comes to job training, whether they do provide some job trainings for I would say blue collar jobs, when it comes to white collar jobs, they're non-existent in our communities. There are no leaders in finance in our communities. There are no leaders in education in our communities. While there are some, those have had different experiences or privileges, as I call them, than the ones from our community. I want to hear a kid from the South Bronx say, I'm going to be president of a bank. I want to hear a kid from the South Bronx say, I want to be president of Apple. Like I want those kids to have the same opportunities that our children rarely have. They don't even mention it because that's something to them that's not something that's viable or reasonable for them. But I want to instill that in them. You can be president of a country if you want to right now. And all you have to do is really go through education. I believe education is the key. And bringing those things to our communities is important because it creates general wealth. I don't want my children's to need anything from the government. I want them to be able to be self-sufficient citizens, contributing citizens to society that can help better other communities and lift them up as they go.
Absolutely. And I love how you said that it's so sad that for these children, that's not even something that they think is possible, that having a dream that big is within their reach. And that is the gap that you want to bridge as a nonprofit. And it's amazing. And I want to understand a little bit deeper about this, that how is the education system now that you are living in US different from how it was back where you used to live, Dominican Republic? So if you could just walk us through that.
So like I said, I had an opportunity to come at a young age. So I've been educated throughout since third grade to the same system that I'm now serving, which is the New York City Department of Education. But as a nonprofit leader, I've been able to go into the public schools out there and present to them a new curriculum, been able to change the way the pedagogy is. That factory hour work life, we're not building factory workers anymore. We're creating entrepreneurs, we're creating engineers, we're creating doctors, we're creating educators. So we need to change the whole shift of how education is being delivered to our children. That's a large piece of social emotional learning. Growing up in New York City, honestly, it was more like a prison. which is why one of our goals is to end the school to prison pipeline. A child acts up in the school, they have 10 security guards on them, then the police is called, and now that child has a record. That child could be possibly not have financial aid to be able to go to college. That child has no opportunities to be able to get grants because they have a prior record. So that is one of the things that we are mostly right now trying to eliminate completely, is that school to prison pipeline. In other countries that I've been aware of, like the Caribbean, St. Martin, Dominican Republic, Haiti, even Puerto Rico, which is colony of the United States, the way that education is being delivered is not being delivered in a way that's meeting our children's need. It's just meeting state standards, or we have to meet. No. Our children just came out of prison for a year. Like all of our children have been home for over a year without the right education. Even though we've had e-learning, a lot of children didn't have food at their home. Schools in New York City are literally, well, like the one I'm in right now, it's a haven. This is where children come and they know that they're gonna have 3 hot meals. They know they're gonna be safe. They know that if they need a t-shirt for the uniforms, there's a washer and dryer in the school. If you need to scream and vent out how you feel, there's 4 counselors here to help you. There's behavioral specialists here. So that makes a huge difference when it comes to child learning, because if a child doesn't feel safe or comfortable, don't think they're going to learn calculus, because they're not.
Absolutely, that is so true. And I really like how you mentioned that safety is the most important thing. If we don't meet safety, if we don't give them food, water, just basic clothes, and I think uniform are so important in the sense that they give a sense of identity and responsibility to students, which is why education kind of reinforces itself. So very, very true. And now Suprena has a few questions to ask. So
yeah, okay. So for the first question that I wanted to understand from you, because the pandemic has upended our lives, the way we knew things were before 2020 and the way things have been currently are quite different across the world in terms of everything. But school closures mostly have impacted education like never before. So I wanted to understand from you, how do you see this change in the space of education? How do you think education has been affected worldwide because of the pandemic?
I think education in its entirety has been transformed. The only advances that we did have, like I said before, was that we had prior knowledge of these devices, computers, laptops, to be able to connect. But if we didn't have these things, honestly, education would be non-existent. While we say education shouldn't be confined into spaces, a school building is a safe haven. Like we said earlier, it's a place for children to feel their culture, they feel connected, they feel a sense of belonging to somewhere, where they can go and understand that this place is literally created for them and just for them, not anyone else. So that way they have that feel of belonging. A lot of our children during this pandemic lost their parents. I personally am helping about 28 children who lost both their parents, and these are middle school and high school students. They don't have anyone else. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? These children feel lost. So that's one thing we did lose after the pandemic, that sense of family within schools, having that school mom, having that school dad, and then those are names that the community gives them because that's where they are. That whole saying, it takes a village to raise a child, that village is usually a school. That's what people are usually referring to. And we want to make sure that even post-pandemic, our children still have those safe spaces, which is why we as educators, especially in New York City, we came back to work. We came back into the school buildings. A lot of us can't because either of health reasons or because they have their own children at home. But those of us that are willing to risk our own health to be able to educate other children is because we want education to be that one main thing that our children are concentrating about. There's so many horrible things going on in the world, and our children are losing so much. Through education, we want them to gain that sense of security back.
Yeah. Well, I think the role of a teacher, nothing bigger than the role of a teacher in a society. So yeah, I would like to really congratulate you for all the commendable work that teachers do and you are doing. And yeah, so I wanted to understand a little bit about how the pandemic impacted the working of your nonprofit. Like, how did it hamper the working? Like, I think, like, if you would like to elaborate on that a little bit, would be good.
Of course, I mean, financially, we're bankrupt. Financially, because we're not able to go into the school systems and be able to do the training for PD for teachers, or being able to sell, or what we do sell, which is training and curriculum writing and curriculums in virtual reality. In that sense, it kind of crippled us a little bit, but we didn't give up. We're still providing the same services to our kids. We're still providing the same spaces. We're still serving as a bridge and as a referral agency to these kids. We have still housed over 1,500 children. We have educated over 50,000. Out of those 50,000, we were able to gain over 28,000 of them to be abstinent and just concentrate on school, the conversation we were having earlier. So it's a lot, being able to serve this new generation of children because of because of the trauma that they've experienced these past 2 years, because it's traumatizing for them. We didn't experience those things. Like the highest trauma we experienced was war, but because of our generations, to us, war was something like, oh, okay, it's a war. But this was a social war. This was an academic war. This not only hindered and crippled our communities financially, but socially and academically. We're humans. We need human contact. We need to be social.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, I just love your extent of empathy. It's so amazing, and the way you understand. A lot of times, our parents, they tend to kind of focus a lot on the problems that they have faced and that discounts our problems, right? So I really like the fact that you acknowledge the differences and how this one is a lot different and also more harmful. So I can see, I mean, your passion resonates through the screen, and it's great to have this conversation. And Francisca, I'd like to understand a little bit more now on how is it that we can help you. We understand the amazing work you do, your non-profit, your passion, it's all said and done. And now I'd like to understand how people who have the resources but not a lot of time. So say what I'm trying to point here is corporate volunteers, right? These are the people who have jobs, but they can't spare long hours, but they want to help. So what are the ways that they can spare 1 hour or 2 hours that would be effective and useful for your nonprofit?
Well, we have an amazing mentoring program where we couple students with their mentors based on their jobs. So if one of our children in 7th grade or in high school wants to be an engineer, we find an engineer. Right now we have the honor, and I'm going to mention his name, Hector Terrero. He's one of the engineers at Apple. He was one of the designers of the Apple 6 watch, one of the only Dominicans in that team. So we were so honored and proud to work with this man who is super, super amazingly busy, but he takes 1 hour a month just to check in with us and ask us what we need, who we need to guide. So mentoring is very important for us. Large corporations, we ask for internships. We have many students looking for internship hours that they need to be able not only to fulfill high school, but college requirements. So if they can help us out by providing spaces for our students to be able to have internship hours with their companies, we would be humbly grateful. And of course, funding. Every nonprofit needs funding. So if they can be able to go on our website and donate to us, which is Brains Academy or HardingHeartsFoundation.org, we would also be humbly grateful.
Awesome. And I love how you were ready with opportunities, mentorship and internships and even donations. And I think we do have those kind of opportunities with us. So Suprena would get into that a little bit after this. But thank you for listing those opportunities. And I hope that you get volunteers from Goodera or otherwise who can help your nonprofits, because you clearly are doing an amazing job. And with that, we are kind of coming to the end of the interview. But before you go, I'd like for you to share with us a quote or any saying that you stand by, or something which you say to your kids, or something which helps you get by during hard times.
Well, well, one quote I want to leave everyone is that it's my quote that I have on Brains Academy, which is, education should not be confined into spaces. It should be available, accessible to everyone, anywhere. And the one thing I always tell my students is that not to hold yourself back. We can literally reach the stars, and I mean the stars, like in outer space right now, if you just educate and put your mind to it. Don't sell yourself short. You're an amazing human being, and it was a 1 out of an 8 billion chance for you to be here. Take advantage of it.
I feel so energetic because of that. Thank you. Thank you. And is there any message that you'd like to give to people who have the required funds or resources to help your nonprofit? So we'd be sharing this with people who could probably help your nonprofit. So anything that you'd like to communicate to them?
Well, this nonprofit is not about making myself rich. It's about making my community rich and allowing those opportunities to those people who don't have a way out. We're creating literally a new reality, a better reality for those who don't have one. So if you can, please partner up with us, give us an opportunity, or just check us out, give us a chance, and you'll see that we're here to serve.